finally got around to finishing South of Midnight last week, and the game has been swirling around in my head ever since. If you haven't played it, or you managed to not see anything, South of Midnight is a third-person action platformer. It's set in a Louisiana-like bayou, and you play as Hazel, a young woman waiting for her social worker mom to return home as a hurricane rolls in. She gets there, she asks you to go check on the neighbors, and while you're out, your trailer, mom included, is swept down the river. Over the next 14 chapters, roughly 12 to 15 hours, you'll pick up some ancestral spinning tools to mend the great tapestry, platform your way across this beautiful, magical realism tinged environment, and defeat some baddies, solve some truly affecting boss battles, and find your mom. There's family trauma, emotionally raw storytelling, a killer Southern blues soundtrack, and truly bad combat. So let's talk about South of Midnight and what I mean when I say the combat is bad, because it's probably not what you think. Most games with canonically good combat fall into two major camps. Either the combat is the point, or the combat serves the point. Call of Duty is the perfect example of the former. The entire game is tooled to make getting to the combat fast. Everything from the way it feels to pull the triggers to the UI decisions for hit markers or the speed at which you can load into a new mission. You're not supposed to sit there and think about what's going on or read the lore about the assault class. You're supposed to visually scan the loadout, intrinsically know what it means, and either select it or let the game default you to something, mashing that respawn button as fast as possible. Fortnite, Doom, Halo, and yes, even Destiny are games where the combat comes first and is the primary reason you're there. You're meant to separate the walk and talk segments or story cutscenes from the violence you're doing. Receive story, do combat. Rarely is the main character of these games reflecting on the violence that they inflict. That's not the point. The enemies are typically faceless or abstracted because the point isn't to think about what you're doing or why. The point of the game is the combat. Compare that to something like The Witcher or Don't Nod's Banisher's Ghosts of New Eden. Sure, you wander around the open world slaying ghosts and monsters, but spoilers, when your wife is a ghost hunter that dies and becomes the very thing she hunts. The tension of slaying specters as you try to go against your code and resurrect a person is the point. It's not even ludonarrative dissonance, it's just good old-fashioned narrative tension. Every swing of your sword against a ghost in Banishers is reinforcing the theme of the game. It's supposed to push you to a conclusion that the ghosts you see need to find peace, and that clinging to the world you've already departed will only create a monster. The combat is the point the game is trying to make. And then there's this third nebulous type of combat in games, what I'll refer to as bad. And I want to be clear, bad combat can still be fun. I'll rankle some noses with this, but GTA is the perfect bad but fun combat game. The game is open enough that plenty of people have found non-violent or Shakespearean ways of interacting with the world, but as much as they want the game to be satirical, it's also not commenting on the hyperviolence. GTA is hyper-real, but you'll never hear a character reflect on massacring 6 city blocks with a rhino tank. Personally, the combat also feels bad, but I guess that's more subjective than what I'm talking about, so we'll just put that to the side for now. Think of it this way. There's the films you find behind a beaded curtain, there's your stereotypical rom-com, and then there's your vapid Hallmark fare. One is all action, no foreplay. Another is story and emotion leading up to some action. And the third has no story and no action, and poor Mario Lopez, who, let's be honest, probably deserves both. No, in my mind, games with truly bad combat, including South of Midnight, fail because the game is neither about doing the combat, nor discussing why you're doing it. Besides a single boss battle, Hazel never considers the interiority of the fodder enemies she's attacking, and no, I don't necessarily think the combat is all that fun, either. In South of Midnight, combat is restricted to clearly marked areas. You'll wander the levels, zipping from grapple point or double jumping one spot to another until you come across a wide area ringed with pustules and a phantom force field. Cross the threshold and monsters spawn, including all the hits. There's a fast guy, shooty guy, guy who spits out smaller guys, ground guy, and big guy. Some other guys too, probably. For each, you'll probably just mash X or use your powers to web them, push them, or pull them, then mash X again. Initially, I think it'd be easy to compare it to a rudimentary Arkham game, but the more I think about it, the closer analog is probably Spyro the Dragon, in more ways than you think. Once you defeat the enemies, you'll have to walk over to this thing creating the force field. It's called a stigma knot, and you'll unravel it with your loom tools. You clear the stigma, and then the pustules go away, bringing back flowers to the meadow, and sometimes rewarding you with a bit of story. Enemies are restricted to these areas, and besides some aggressive brambles, there's nothing that can really damage you outside of these arenas. You're told by a talking catfish that the stigma you're clearing is the manifestation of intense, painful feelings, which makes sense. Each chapter is about betrayal, death, longing, and just being misunderstood by your peers. But the enemies you face aren't related to the story of each chapter, and they're just faceless, jumbled tar monsters. You're not defeating the manifestations of rage. They're impediments to the good stuff, the story, the mystery, and the platforming. Fundamentally, South of Midnight's combat is bad, not because pressing X isn't fun. It's bad because it serves no purpose. You will not gain extra XP due to your mastery of hitting the buttons, nor does defeating an enemy serve a thematic purpose. The themes are in the cutscenes and the boss battles, even the lyrics to the songs played during those boss battles. But themes in the day-to-day combat? No. The most frustrating part is that South of Midnight knows it. The themes of the game are in opposition to the violence. Hazel's mother is a social worker. She's helping to rehome foster children, and she deeply cares for the community. The ghost of the original Weaver that you meet, Mahalia, who Hazel learns many of her skills from, is helping a family of slaves escape to a sanctuary of other escapees that she's found. You'll learn to grapple, double jump, glide, and fly through the air currents by watching Mahalia's ghost. But she won't show you how to use your combat skills. The platforming in the game is fun, again, reminiscent of PlayStation 1 platformers like Spyro. It's not all that challenging, but exploring surreal bayou areas, whether climbing a massive tree formed from an abused boy or a flooded pig farm complete with sprinklers of poop,
not a shit sprinkler,
is a compelling way to explore Hazel's environment. Each level tells the story of a particular boss they lead up to, the challenges and set pieces leading up to a musical number telling their story from their own point of view. Each boss is the victim of violence. The boss battles are typically two phases. The first is simple attack pattern recognition, and the second is attacking their wound, a physical manifestation of their hurt, which is the result of people inflicting physical or emotional violence upon them. Every step of the way, the game is trying to tell Hazel and trying to tell you that not caring for your brother, not respecting someone's dreams, that resorting to violence to solve your problems is the source of the stigma you find throughout the game. And yet, at the end, Hazel comes to understand this. You don't have some grand confrontation with your grandmother Bunny, one of the antagonists of the game. Instead, you speak with her, recognize her grief, and allow her to seek a probably unhealthy resolution. The conclusion of South of Midnight isn't some grand boss battle. It's a quiet chat besides a fireplace. This is not a Cinema Sins plot holes channel. Most of the time I really couldn't give a damn about continuity areas or time loop inconsistencies. The thing that I care about is consistency in storytelling. Being able to weave a story, touching on a thematic core, and echo it in motifs and moments throughout a piece of work. From the story to the music to, yes, the combat, a thematically consistent work is a cohesive work, and it's usually the special sauce that makes a 7 out of 10 a 9 out of 10 in my book. So, as a treat for sticking around this long, it's time to talk about how South of Midnight could have had it all. I'm going to talk about Act 3, so if you still want to go into this game unspoiled, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Alright,
Now that it's just us cool dudes, let's talk about the realm of dreams and nightmares and being stuck in an eternal hell of your own pain to be devoured by a big giant smoke monster that only really wants to feed on your strong emotions. That's right, folks. South of Midnight is a Pixar movie. There are three kinda antagonists in the game. The first is your estranged grandmother, Bunny. She's a rich old white woman living in a stereotypical plantation in Louisiana. When Hazel alludes to Bunny that she has weaver powers in the game's opening, Bunny takes her in and then locks her in the mansion. Hazel escapes, runs into Bunny later, and discovers that perhaps the reason that she's such a terrible, diabolical monster of a person is that her pride and joy, Cherie, drowned when she was an infant. Was it maybe due to her being an emotionally abusive mother to Hazel's father, as well as a neglectful rich old lady? I mean, who's to say? But suffice to say, Bunny sucks and has turned to dark magic to revive her daughter Cherie, going so far as to lock her soul in an old tree. It's, cartoon villain stuff, but it's pretty well executed. The second villain of the game is the folktale bogeyman, Huggin' Molly. Huggin' Molly in Alabama folklore emerges from the dark and shrieks or hugs children, disappearing them somewhere. The story is supposed to be a scary one, teaching kids to come home before dark. But in South of Midnight, it turns out that Huggin' Molly was born in a down-on-their-luck industrial town and began taking children that were unwanted, neglected, or abused. You visit her mountain lair in Chapter 9. It's a really cool, miraculous hangout space, complete with fairy lights and giant skeletons, classrooms, and hand-stitched clothing. Somehow, Hazel, so consumed with finding her mother, is unable to see the kindness of Huggin' Molly, nor understand several clues about her mom helping to rehome those same foster kids to Molly's care.
A woman made of lace. Is he talking about Mama? Mama? It's beautiful. But why is it here?
And you end up attacking Molly as if she were an enemy. Guess what? You defeat her, understand how you misread the situation by being berated by those same foster kids Molly is taking care of.
Molly, doing what she's always done, but I never truly seen. Healing.
Molly was healing you?
You hurt Miss Molly. Lacey woman is gonna be mad at you.
Lacey woman?
She doesn't like mean people. That's why she brings us around Molly, to keep away from the meanies.
She brought you here? The missing kids. The ones Mama said the system failed. Oh my gosh, she rescued you!
Only to find Bunny, cutting out Molly's heart for a dark magic ritual to resurrect Cherie.
Molly! I'm sorry. You were trying to tell me that you'd saved her, but I didn't understand. Maybe I can fix the... Bunny? What are you doing? Wait, no! She's a friend. She saved my mom. She's healing her.
Oh, I know. And now, she will save my daughter.
It's pretty messed up stuff. The big bad, if you can call them that, is Kushma.
Kushma?
You never heard of Kushma?
The hungry black fog that chases Hazel at the end of each chapter. Kushma is the king of dreams and nightmares, and they're depicted as an insatiable hunger, feasting on despair, pain, and strong emotions. Near the end of the game, you visit the realm of dreams and nightmares, and you come across tons of people who take up residence there, trapped in a prison of their own making. People who are unwilling or unable to move past some great traumatic moment, a desire, or a loss in their life. There's a wannabe actress who accepts award after award that she never received in her life. A man embraces his resurrected wife, and Hazel gets to relive the moment her mother washed away. Kushma, the whole time, harvesting these emotions. I mean, remember when I said that South of Midnight was a Pixar movie? It's just Monsters, Inc. You end up having to battle Kushma as the final boss, but even in defeat, Kushma's hunger lives on. No amount of webbing, jumping, or punching will end the world's hunger for despair or regret. I mean, you simply cannot ground pound the world's ails to death.
You can't defeat the king of dreams and not mess. You contained his hunger for now, but you ain't gonna stay put for too long.
Each of the chapter end bosses ends in a similar way. You scale Benji the tree and you attack his wound, but the tree lives on. You learn how Benji was cast amontelladoed into a tree by his brother when that brother no longer wanted to take care of him or stand up for him. Benji died in that tree, abandoned by his brother, but lives on now, his branches blooming. He's not cured from that violence, but he's able to heal now. The second boss, Two-Toed Tom, is a giant alligator that wanders the bayou trying to find his next meal. When Jolene, the daughter of Father Swopes, Tom's owner, hits it big in the music scene, Swopes took out his frustration and jealousy with Jolene on the gator, starving it for days and keeping it on a tight leash. Father Swopes is conditioning Tom to only eat at the sound of a bell. When Jolene returns home and shoulders more abuses from her father, she sees how Tom is living, and she saw her chance. When Father Swopes falls asleep, Jolene releases Tom's leash and rings his food bell. Swopes, clearly an evil animal abuser, is eaten by Tom, and Jolene is now free of her father's abuses. Just like Benji, when you defeat Two-Toed Tom in combat later, you move to phase 2, healing his wound. Then he swims away, never to be seen again. Laurent, the owner of the juke joint, has a history as a bootlegger and son of 2 lumbermill employees, and he's a rougarou, or a person who turns into an owl when he becomes increasingly angry. Throughout his chapters and his final confrontation, you discover that Laurent's mom fell ill at the lumber mill, but the company's script they were paid in wouldn't pay for medical care, so his mother dies. Laurent, after months of he and his father shouldering the abuses of the rich mill owner, confronts the owner pulls a gun on Laurent, his dad steps in, and he's killed. Again, the character wielding the weapons of violence are evil. The pain and the sorrow Hazel tries to mend is the result of violence. Just like Benji and Two-Toed Tom, Laurent isn't fixed, whatever that means. He's still a rougarou, though no longer a giant rage monster. His pain, like the others, still lingers because hurt caused by violence can't be solved in the same way.
I tried to reweave you, but I think something went wrong.
No. This is me. This has been me longer than I care to remember.
Those boss battles are pretty indicative of the game's message, but you could just as easily dismiss those conclusions by saying that, well, Hazel's the protagonist and she's not a killer. Of course she wouldn't kill Benji or Two-Toed Tom or local business owner Laurent. And I probably agree with you too, until the second to last mythical creature you find. Ayatunde is a young mother and a slave living on a bayou casino boat. When she heard of Mahalia's enclave for escaped slaves, she took her baby in her arms and jumped overboard, hoping to find the sanctuary. She places her child in the knot of a tree and fled her pursuers, returning when they gave up the chase, but her child was nowhere to be found. Hazel finds her child, now a 20-foot-tall bark creature made of moss and just swamp gunk named Honey. Ayatunde's sorrow has transformed her into a towering cryptid herself, who has spent decades still scouring this bayou for her child. Her story doesn't conclude with a big boss battle or even Hazel sneaking up to attack her wound. Instead, you lead Honey to her, and as they hug, they both ascend to the spiritual realm.
She might not recognize you. Let me protect you.
Mama will be there in the morning. Mama will be there in the morning.
The story is explicit at this point. Only love and compassion can heal the pain inflicted in our past. No amount of violence, no amount of combat can end the suffering we live with. Only an act of kindness can begin to heal that wound. Hazel recognizes this lesson in the end, and she offers her grandmother Bunny a one-way ticket to Kushma's prison realm.
I know who you are. It won't really be her.
You'll never be able to tell the difference, I promise.
Bunny, in trying to revive her daughter, has become a false stitcher, someone who uses other mythical creatures, like Molly's heart, or dark magic, to do what Hazel does so easily. Bunny is the source of all of the stigma you've been clearing up the entire game. She's been using violent magic to tear up the Grand Tapestry. In the final cutscene, you see her accept your offer to go to the realm of dreams and nightmares, where she'll live out the rest of her days, reliving her favorite moments of Cherie, never knowing the illusion, but being slowly eaten by Kushma. It's a rotten end for a rotten person, but there is no violent conclusion. Bunny's violence isn't responded to with punches and kicks from Hazel, because the most damaging and kind thing Hazel can do is grant Bunny's wish. Bring Cherie back. It's the conclusions of Ayatunde and Bunny's storylines that frustrate me the most in South of Midnight. They are the perfect encapsulation of the game's message, and they offer a fable-like conclusion to a magical realist story. As much as the themes are apparent and explicit to the player, though, Hazel never reaches this conclusion about kindness, and the mechanics of the game just never really reinforce it. Up through the Kushma fight, the game's final battle, you're still gaining upgrade points for your combat skills. You never learn a Care Bear stare that loves the fodder haint enemies to death. Surrounded in the realm of dreams and nightmares by people who cannot move on from their past traumas and old ways, Hazel is still chasing her mom, and she is still waging war on everything in her path. You'll mash X until the very end. South of Midnight is a unique, fun game to play, telling a simple but sweet story in a setting rarely seen in media. I still think that you should play South of Midnight. It's an emotional experience about real human things, and it doesn't pull its punches, even though I think it'd be better for pulling some of them. Yes, the combat is bad because it's neither good enough to enjoy for the challenge nor serve the nonviolent, kindness-based themes of the game, but if you've made it this far, let me let you in on a little secret. You can turn it off. The accessibility options in South of Midnight allow you to skip the combat sequences, skip the chase sequences, or skip the boss battles. South of Midnight really started to work for me when I started skipping those combat sequences, and I imagine the same will be the case for you. The pacing picks up, and the themes actually hit when the only things Hazel is hitting are those who don't disappear in a puff of smoke. The platforming starts to sing more, and exploring the world isn't followed by a groan when a 3-minute arena battle breaks up. Your momentum zipping through the world. So yes, the combat is bad for a multitude of reasons, but don't let that stop you from playing South of Midnight. It's not what I expected it to be, nor is it a perfect experience, but if you greet it with a little kindness, you might just be surprised by what you find. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.